swing it. It's a ball, fly ball. Home run! 3, 2, 1.
Alright, Ryan, we got a Raptor update. And you know how I love my Raptor updates. This week we had the Raptors play the Wizards in Toronto.
Short week. 3 games last week. One so far. They play again Friday.
They play again Friday in Montreal versus the Knicks. And the Raptors pulled one out with Kyle Lowry playing his first game. They won 104-101.
And did I see calf injury?
You did see a calf injury. Now, supposedly it's a different calf injury than previously Bargnani has had. This time he was sort of kicked in the calf, where before it was more like he went up for a shot and tore it. So it looks like it might just be a bruise, but clearly they're going to be cautious with him because it's only preseason games. They don't need him to play. In saying that, Lowry came back and I think he had a great game. I think his stat line was something of 14 points, 6 assists, 3 steals, really good line like across the board. Valanciunas looked good again, 8 points, 8 rebounds, 3 block shots. That's pretty good. When you combine that with Bargnani had 2 block shots as well, that's 5 block shots between the starting center and starting power forward.
That's pretty good, eh? Well, the one thing I did notice with Valanciunas in that game, because I did get to watch a bit of that game, was he was you tell the first game he played last week, he had some momentum, some adrenaline going. He got caught a couple of times in this game, I noticed, where he had the ball stripped once or twice from him. It was all speed. It was all tempo. It was just, he was second game, probably a bit of a letdown from the first game. But other than that, like you said, his stats aren't bad either. He's got, 6 defensive rebounds in that game, which is pretty darn good because we haven't had any rebounding in the defensive zone in years. Really
great. Now, one thing I really like to see, if you combine the 2 point guards, because we now have 2 pretty much starting point guards, we have Lowry and we got Calderon. Calderon had a great game too off the bench with 12 points and 8 assists. So, I mean, really, if you look at a combined total, that's 14 assists, 26 points. That's a pretty great game between your point guards.
Yeah. Well, that's it. And if they can keep that up, game in, game out, then it's a pretty good 1-2 punch where you don't have to worry about one of them having to play every night and get a ton of minutes and be exhausted by the end of the season. If you can sub these 2 guys in and out and use somebody like John Lucas even as a third guy.
Well, even Lucas had 3 points or 5 points, 3 assists, 3 rebound game in 12 minutes. As a third point guard, you can't ask for a better stat line than that.
Exactly. I mean, this team has been hurting in depth for a long time, and a lot of teams definitely need some depth, and it's good to see them with depth. No, like superstar power, unless Bargnani can match those totals he was putting up last year. So if you don't have that superstar, you need bench depth.
DeRozan had a pretty easy game, 11 points, not too many other stat lines. Fields had a very good game in terms of defensively, and he looked good on the offensive end, 15 points. Stats right across the board, got 3 rebounds, a couple of assists, and a steal. It's pretty good there as well. Not many turnovers for him either. So,
just the Raptors were turning the ball over early on in that game.
Yeah,
if I remember correctly.
And then they got the second half. They sort of played a little bit better. So
sloppy first half.
Anyway, so the game this week, we got the Raptors are playing in Montreal, which is a great idea. They go play at the Bell Center. They're going to play the Knicks. It doesn't look like Bargnani is going to play because he sat out today in terms of his calf injury. As well, in other Raptor news, Ed Davis's option for a 4th year was picked up, so he'll be with the team again next season, given however he does.
Stability and depth, basically, right there. I mean, that's a good pickup, I think.
And basically, the Raptors are, now that the sort of like the previews are coming out, it seems as if the Raptors aren't sort of given too much of a chance. But ESPN just came out with sort of their preview, their ESPN magazine preview. We had the Raptors finishing 5th in the Atlantic, which is, the Atlantic this year is crazy intense, very deep conference or division. So 5th in the conference or in the division isn't horrible. They have them 9th overall. Projected record, they have around 40-41, and basically they have Lowry's your point guard. You can get a maximum of about 42 wins. If Calderon's your point guard, you get a maximum of 45 wins. Either way, they have them around 9th overall.
Sorry, 37 wins for Calderon.
Well, 37 was the lowest. 45
was the
overall.
Overall, yeah.
And basically what they're saying is, and I mean, we've touched on it a little bit, is that now this team has a lot more depth. I mean, we have Valanciunas as a center. That's actually legitimate center now. Bargnani has someone to complement him. Fields is not a scorer, but with a starting lineup like they have, they just need a guy that's willing to make the cuts, play good defense, and get a few points from here and there. And then you got DeRozan seems to be going to the basket a little bit harder this year, and definitely have Lowry, who seems to be a little bit more of a push point guard.
Yeah, and the thing again, like you go back to even some of these previews we're watching about that this team is better defensively than they have been in years past, and their depth is better. What that says to me is you can't score with a Miami Heat type team or the Bulls when they're healthy, so you might as well sit back and try to counterattack as much as you can and let them take the shots. Defend, and counterattack. Kind of similar to a boxer in that sense, as opposed to being a fighter, or a puncher. You're a boxer more than anything else. Which, when you don't have those superstars, I think that's the only way to go.
Yeah,
you can't run with them.
No, and the Raptors have done a good job to go with depth. They don't have necessarily a real true superstar. Go with depth. Go with a solid 5 guys. Go with a good 3 or 4 guys off the bench, and see if that can get you going. And I think this year they have a chance to just improve themselves. Be that if they make the playoffs or not, I think this team is now considered one of the more young and up-and-coming team in the NBA.
And I think, like theory-wise, I mean, when you play a team like Miami, the idea is just to try and stay in the game and hope to steal one by the end. But then to be able to beat up the other teams, the bottom teams in the league, and get your wins that way, and maybe a couple upsets.
Right, and I think this team, with the depth that it does have, has that capability. Far more than they have in the past couple of seasons with this roster.
And they can keep it close. They're a better defensive team, right? Better defensive coach, better defensive team overall.
Yeah, and they have a little bit more options on offense now than they did, especially from last year. So.
But definitely, I mean, again, you're the NBA guy. You're the Raptors fan more so than I am as far as core basketball goes. I have watched a few minutes here and there of the 4 NBA preseason games with the Raptors, and to me, they've actually looked all right. I mean, yes, they've had some sloppy moments, but it's preseason. You have to be able to overlook that. I'm actually more excited this year than I have been the last couple of years with this team.
All right, guys. So we'll be back with you next week, basically to talk about how the Raptors did on Friday and Monday's game. They play again in Toronto versus the Milwaukee Bucks. If you live in Montreal and you're listening to this podcast, they come into town tomorrow night. The Knicks. That's Carmelo Anthony, Mary Stoudemire, Tyson Chandler, Jason Kidd. Some big names there. No Patrick Ewing. Anyways, at the end, they're playing Montreal tomorrow night, 7 o'clock start, and we'll be back at you next week with a little update, sort of going into the last week of the preseason as the Raptors start their season.
Let's get it started.
October 31st.
No NHL, get it going.